All right, so I thought we'd have an easy one now, which is there've been quite a few questions posed on the forum about poliovirus, and poliovirus has been a target for eradication for a long time. I mean, the introduction of the Salk vaccine was thought to be was going to be this great panacea. It was going to change public health worldwide. Yet here we are, many decades later, still with polio, and in fact with an increase and a resurgence of polio in many parts of the world. And so many folks have been asking, what is it that is so challenging about polio that has prevented us from being effective despite good therapies and despite a good vaccine?
Okay, I'll start. Clearly, one issue is the lack of trust of some governments in using the Sabin vaccine strains. You really have to have everyone vaccinated in order to eradicate the virus. And so when you have governments not allowing their citizens to be vaccinated, that always, that maintains a pool of people that can be infected and carry the virus. Mm-hmm. And we have seen with this Ebola epidemic, it doesn't take much to get virus to move across the globe. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing, I think. And then, another aspect of this is access. So we're constantly hearing in Asia that there's an outbreak here or there. And it's just accessibility. Mm-hmm. You have to get these campaigns to the people. And that creates somewhat of a challenge. I mean, I think the incidence of polio cases is down into like the single digits, double digits annually without an outbreak. Right. So we have really substantially reduced the burden, of polio-related disease. Mm-hmm.
But you raise an important point there, or an important term there, right? Which is polio-related disease, which is the thing that we see. But the manifestation of disease is at a very, very low rate, right? I mean, it's something on the order of 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 that actually manifests paralytic disease. Right. And so when we have areas that have relatively low coverage, and even if it's a small number of people that are susceptible to polio, a vast number of them could actually be infected and maintaining infection without our ability to see it, because our surveillance system is largely built around expression of disease and around acute flaccid paralysis.
So I don't know enough about polio, but I was curious. Actually, it was in the newspaper yesterday or the day before or something, where they said that they were wondering if 2 out of 3 polio strains had been eradicated.
Yes.
I don't know.
So poliovirus type 1. So there was it was a News and Views in Science this past issue, saying that those that are monitoring, so I guess it would be the World Health Organization, CDC, they have not seen poliovirus type 3 in a long time, so they really do believe that it's eradicated. Polio 2, I guess, was the first to be eradicated. Okay. And poliovirus 1, which has been the major source of the problem from the beginning, is still here. Mm-hmm.
So is there cross-protective immunity between them, or
no?
Or
so the
the
serotypes are that classification of type 1, type 2, and type 3, that was based on serology. Okay. So the capsids are different.
So it seems to me also that, so I think, like you said, access and the dispersion of the vaccine is critical. But it also seemed like, I don't know, we were talking the other day that there are kids that get polio that's had multiple doses of the oral vaccines. At least allegedly, according to their vaccination schedules. And so is the vaccine efficacy quite variable?
So I think, so again, one of the other problems, I think when you think about the inability to eradicate, you're looking now at having to fight vaccine-associated disease. Mm-hmm. So recombination between, so we have Salk, as you said. Salk is the inactivated poliovirus vaccine, but then you have three forms of the live attenuated vaccines, and those are the Sabin strains. And so you have immunocompromised people that shed and shed and shed Sabin vaccine strains. There are naturally circulating strains of Coxsackie A that can recombine with Sabin strains and give you a virulent strain that can cause poliomyelitis, but it's not classical polio, you know. And so one of the discussions that the academics have, it's one of those things. I think we've come so far at this point that WHO, CDC, they are really, really determined to try to do this. But you have a lot of academics saying that if you really clear polio, just natural recombination with Coxsackie A strains will yield a virus that can fill that niche, even though it's not polio.
That's really interesting, because early on in the course there was quite a lot of discussion on the forum also about the what's it called, Entero D68,
right?
Which is that's also something that
so there are a lot of enteroviruses circulating. Enterovirus 71 is yet another one that causes hand, foot, and mouth disease. So most of the Coxsackie viruses, because they cause hand, foot, and mouth disease. But when they penetrate, barriers that allow them access to CNS, they cause the same type of disease as
CNS
polio. The central nervous system. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
It can cause meningitis, actually. There's a enterovirus meningitis outbreak going on right now as well.
It's really interesting. There's sort of an inevitability about certain parts of the human body or ecosystem that something is going to step into it. There's always going to be a place where weedy grasses grow, irrespective of what we call it. And that's not
so is there so when you're looking at this broad group of viruses, several of which can cause polio-like symptoms, is there... Do you see, going back to our previous question, do you think are there any kind of broad spectrum vaccines that could be developed? Or
so targeting the polymerase. So it's already known. There's a drug right now. It's called favipiravir that's being developed for flu. It was discovered by a Japanese company, and this is an interesting digression. It turns out that nucleosides are flavor enhancers. So this particular company in Japan that had one of the largest libraries of nucleosides developed that library to make different soy sauces. And it turned out that at some point they decided they have this library. Why don't we actually screen it to see if we can find antivirals? So this one favipiravir is currently in phase 3 clinical trials for flu, but it has broad spectrum activity. Across many viral families. There's a drug, sofosbuvir, that was just approved for treatment of hepatitis C virus. It's another nucleoside targeted to the viral polymerase in the hepatitis C family, but we and others have looked at our favorite virus using that drug, and it seems to work, at least in cell culture. But there hasn't really been a lot of, once a drug is approved, then physicians can actually use it for other indications or test it for other indications. But right now, the cost of sofosbuvir, it's something like $85,000 for a 12-week or 8 to 12-week course. So it's very expensive to try.
Yeah. So the end of this, this just isn't an easy question. And in fact, the challenge of attacking polio really does draw from all the various different fields that we've talked about in this course. There's microbiology, there's population dynamics, but there's also communication and education and outreach and logistics, all of which need to come together, I think, to try and solve what is really a very complicated problem.